So fine, we'll start with the next architecture, because in the last classes, what we have done is we completed our first CNN architecture, that is LANet, and in this we have seen completely what is convolution, what is max pooling, and why exactly we have to use the convolution operation. And one more thing that I forgot to tell you yesterday is why fully connected layers. Because in the last part of your network, you have fully connected layers. Why we have to have fully connected layers? For example, take the case of LANet. You have a convolution layer 1, convolution layer 1, then max pool 1, then convolution operation 2, max 2. Directly I can connect all these outputs to a 10 neurons, where these 10 neurons actually give the probability distribution of 10 classes. Why should I again connect to fully connected layers and then connect to this? With these connections, actually your number of parameters are increasing. Actually, if you see, the number of parameters in this is around only 4,000, around approximately, and the number of parameters only in this last 2 to 3 layers, which are fully connected layers, are around more than 59,000. That means I came to convolutional neural networks because to reduce the number of weights. Okay, in my dense connections, the weights are increasing. Again, I am introducing that problematic neural layers. Why should I do that? Again, the reasoning is an add-on to the previous reasoning. What is happening here is in each convolution, we are trying to find small patterns, and that maximum fired neurons will be taken in the max pooling layer. Again, when you keep on moving further, these neurons aggregates and forms into shapes. But even though you're trying to form the required shape of an object in the image, it you cannot exploit because you don't have dense connections here. You have only sparse connections. But once you have some aggregated shapes here, once you connect in a more dense way, then all possible shapes will be exploited, and finally you but I'm not doing these connections in the beginning. Because why I'm not doing this? Why can't I put the fully connected layer in the beginning also and put convolution layer and max pooling layer in the middle? Because the dense connections would not help me in generalizing the patterns. I told you from the beginning, the convolution layers will help us to understand the image or the objects in the image in a generalized way. Once I understood the patterns, that's very important. It's this pattern, I already told multiple times. For example, it's a 5, multiple times I'm repeating. The pattern, this pattern, this pattern, this pattern. If I recognize this pattern, these patterns are recognized from convolution layers, and this forms into a shape by the end of this last layer. But the thing is, I need to ensure that even though I write 5 like this, or write 5 like this, or not exactly like this, or write 5 something like this also, I should be able to recognize that. So that is the reason these dense connections will generate all possible shapes with the patterns that were detected. That is the reason you require fully connected layers at the end. Okay. Sorry, no. Okay. Just a little bit of water. Okay. This is the reason why you should have fully connected layers. Okay. Fine. So, I don't know whether I told you this. If I have an image with a dog, or if I have an image with cat, and supply any of these images to my deep neural network, that is to be precise CNN, and then I would get as a dog or a cat. You should get a doubt. Actually, I asked this question in the previous slot. They could not tell the answer, but they could not tell the precise answer. They told, but I did not get the answer that I expected. Let me see how many of you will answer. See, why I am bothered about detecting a dog in image, detecting a cat in an image? Is it looking silly? Am I like doing very silly application? Why should I do this? Can anybody tell me? It's not a childish game that detecting dog or cat, right? Why should I do this? Can anybody tell me? Hmm? Oh, strange. Okay. Okay, so I could have told you the CNN applications in the beginning itself before I start the architectures. I think I told this application previously also for your section. See, take the case of blind person. Okay, so this blind person cannot see. Nowadays, many startups are already working or already have released the goggles. That goggles, when the blind person keep it, when the blind person wear that goggles, that goggles will speak, will deliver sentences saying that a dog is approaching to you. Please be aware of that. Okay, or the cat that was a cat was the cat entered into your house and trying to drink milk. So how helpful that sort of situation to a blind person. So if I want to do that, first of all, what should I do, Nana? I should recognize what is happening in front of me. I should be able to recognize the objects. An extension to this is, assume that you're teaching kid that this is car, this is some bottle. Why are you teaching? And this is maybe pen, etc., etc. Why are you teaching the kid to name the objects? Why should I do that? Because this is my first step. Next step is going to sentences. Do you see nowadays the robots are speaking English very well, better than us? Do you think that it can be trained directly without not being recognized by the objects, or without not being having the capability of not recognizing the objects? All right, first of all, the robots will be trying to recognize the objects, then they'll be trying to generate sentences in a more natural way. That means the reason of always touching upon this dog and cat is because it's a standard data set that we will ask the students to work on whenever they start with the deep learning projects. This is one thing, and handwritten digit recognition is one other another project. Do not think that what kind of silly topics we are learning, and there's no point in applying these topics into the real world. No, no, no. You name any aspect of deep learning, you give me any project of deep learning, I will tell you the real time application. You may not be directly extracting that from the project, but they will have. I did not see a single project till now which is not helping people. You tell me any project, it will help the people. Deep learning is for the people, only for the people. Okay. So now, in that regard, let us see the applications of CNN. There are many applications. If I keep on listing it, the time will not be sufficient. At least I'll highlight few of them. For facial recognition, we can use CNN. And if you want to analyze documents, analyzing documents, we will use CNN. And for image captioning and video captioning, this is nowadays being very, very trendy. In future, mark my words, in future, mark my words, nowadays the captions are being generated automatically, right? At least in the context of English. But recently, I don't know whether I told you or not, Sundar Pichai in the Google I/O note shown a video, and he doesn't want to watch the entire video. Directly, he has given a question to the video saying that please directly take me to a scene where lion is roaring. That means directly you will be taken to that particular timestamp. How the system recognized it? Because system has used multimodality modeling. Multimodality modeling. So if it's little difficult for you to maybe at this point to understand this, but the underlying technique that was used is the video caption. That means it was the captions are not generated only to the text or only to the speech that you're talking. That means if I'm talking, the subtitles are coming. Then it is easy for me to recognize what is happening in that scene. But scene description is not only about what I talk. A lot of things happen at the background. There are some speech, there are some scenes where there is no talking also. But how do you actually recognize that scenes? Okay, so all those things is now extended versions of video captioning models that people are really working on that. Okay. And the other application where CNN is extremely used is medical image analysis. That means if I give a CT scan image, CT scan image analyzing is definitely very tricky. So if you give it to deep learning model itself generate the report. How beautiful it is. Okay, and not only CT scan, MRI, and all other possible reports in the context of medical domain, it will identify the anomaly or it will tell that anomaly exists or not. And it can even apply to brain computer interface. This is also a very interesting field where it actually analyzes your brain signals and it will tell what you're thinking, or it will also tell whether you're lying. Okay, lie detectors you generally see in movies. Okay, that means whether you're decepting or not decepting can be known. For this also, you can use CNN. Like this, you have a number of applications now. Okay, so don't think that deep learning is used for silly problems. Deep learning is everywhere, Nana. Wherever you see images, wherever you see videos, wherever you see audio, wherever you see text, wherever you see Excel files. Other than this, do you find any kind of data? That means what? Deep learning is used for any kind of data. Now, the big combo is DL plus NLP. Deep learning with NLP is awesome, and you can do wonders with this combination. But unfortunately, we don't have this NLP subject. I think they're not offering at least this semester. So that's the reason we are studying. But this NLP you can study on your own if you know the DL, because basically text or textual analytics is not so difficult. You can easily gain the basics. Okay. But if you want to understand the research aspects, almost the advanced aspects of NLP, you require little in-depth knowledge. But if you want to do basic coding in NLP with DL, it is easy. Okay. Okay. Now let us jump into the main topic. Now, I told the applications, but I want to categorize what exactly CNN can do. Maybe some of them. What happens is CNN can do a classification. Okay. CNN also can do object detection. Some of your projects was based on this object detection. Now, how it recognizes objects, I think by now you have seen it. For example, if some object is there, maybe some object car is there. I'm not drawing the car. Assume that the car is there. It draws bounding box around that object. Around that object. If, for example, if you have some car followed by maybe helmet of like of a person on a two-wheeler, that helmet also will have bounding box. That means it can even detect multiple objects in a single image. It can also do another thing called instant segmentation. What do I mean by instant segmentation? For example, if I have some person like this, I want to recognize that this is human. Then if it's a object detection, it will just draw a bounding box around it. But if it's an instant segmentation, what it will do is it will just try to do like this. Almost the shape of it would be segmented and it will show you that. Instant segmentation is this kind of application is called instant segmentation. This is mostly used in medical image analysis. Okay, fine. Now the question that should come to your mind, for example, object detection is there. Is object detection a classification task or a regression task? Detecting the object is a classification task or a regression task, where object detection basically highlights that object and gives that object name here, car. Actually, the image will be there here. So it will have a label at the top, car. Okay. So is this a classification task or a regression task? First of all, to tell whether some object exists in that particular area, it's a classification task. Whether some object exists in that area or not is a classification task. But to draw the bounding box of around that object, draw bounding box around that object is a regression task. Till now, we have not dealt with the regression task. Regression, why this is a regression task? Because I need to draw the bounding box. How do you draw a bounding box? You should know the starting point. You should know the x comma y at this point, and you should also know this height and this width. Okay, so then the remaining part of the box also you can draw because it's a rectangle. Is it fine? So why I call this as regression? Because I need to draw the box. So the box coordinates I want the height and width. So definitely I can call this as regression. So estimating these parameters x comma y, h and w around that object is definitely a regression task. We'll come to know a lot of details in this direction, but let us complete because this object detection we will do in module 5, Nana. Module 5, dedicated modules are there for this object detection. You need to worry about it. We discussed the state of the art models for this. I just want to tell you that like CNN basic job is to detect objects. Okay. Now let us continue this because we are done with one architecture called LANet. One architecture called LANet. Let us jump into the second architecture that is called LXNet. Like this, we'll deal 5 to 6 architectures. Before I jump into the next architecture, LXNet, because the person who introduced, the author who introduced this architecture is Alex, that's the reason he named as AlexNet. Now, why we are learning these standard architectures? These are standard architectures. Why should I learn this? Because I can have my own architecture, but why you have to learn it? As I told earlier also, it will be very difficult to try all possible hyperparameters like number of hidden layers, number of filters, filter size, all those things. If you keep on trying, it will take a lot of time for you to come up with the standard architecture. So people have come up with all experiments and fixed different configurations across different architectures, and we can use those architectures for our task. Okay, fine. So now let us jump into AlexNet. Actually, module 3, what happens with this module 3 is there will be a lot of repetitions. So, but slowly new points will be added as we go on for the further architectures. Just listen carefully. Okay. Now, if AlexNet will have something like this. This is the input. Input size is, I think it should be 227 by 227. This is my width and height. I'm not drawing it exactly. Okay. Actually, if it is 227, this length and this length should be same, but I'm not drawing it. You can imagine it. Okay. So 227 by 227, and the number of channels is 3 channels. That means yesterday somebody asked me, day before yesterday or sometime, they said, why are you applying only on black and white images? Why you are not doing with the colored channels or colored images? So this is R channel, this is G channel, this is B channel. Okay, and this is my input image, Nana. This is input image. Now let us apply the convolution operation. We should have the configuration, right? The configuration is k is equal to okay, before I write the k, let me write f is equal to 11, s is equal to 4, stud is 4, padding is 0, and k is 96. This is my configuration. With this configuration, if you supply w naught is equal, now this time I'll write again, I'll not keep on doing the same silly operation every time. Wi would be 227 plus 2p, p is 0, minus f is 11, by stride is 4, plus 1, you'll get what? You'll get 55. Similarly, with height also will be 55. So this would be 55, and this also will be 55. How many such 55 by 55s will be there? 96. So I cannot draw that 96 here, guys. So you can imagine that it goes on till 96. Okay. So this is fine. Now you'll be surprised one interesting fact. If I develop, or if I do the connections in a dense way, if I construct a dense neural network like I do in my DNN, can you imagine the number of connections? Can you imagine the number of connections? Basically, if I vectorize this, it will be 227 into 227 into 3 channels. If I want to convert into a vector form, this will be the total number of neurons. If I convert this two-dimensional 3 channels, this would be the total number of neurons in your input layer. And if I want to vectorize this, it will be 55 into 55 into 96. You know that in dense neural network, every neuron in the previous layer will be connected to every other neuron. right? That means the total number of parameters for you to establish only just one layer into 55 into 55 into 9 digits. Can you imagine what is this number? It will be greater than 4,000 crores. I just want to tell you in crores, not in millions. It is greater than 4,000 crores. That means if I just want to apply or establish a standard architecture, a DNN architecture instead of CNN, it only for one layer. I'm not talking even about the second layer. How many connections or how many weights you require? 4,000 weights. Sorry, 4,000 crores of weights. Done. Initializing that and running it, training it, back propagating it, and finding out the best weights. Your entire life will be done. Okay, so that's the reason it's not suggestible to have a DNN when you have this huge configuration. Okay, so that's the reason we go for CNN. Now, these 4,000 crores, can you imagine what happens if I do CNN? Can you estimate the number of parameters with CNN? You know the parameters estimation formula. What is that? It is basically, did I tell you? Yeah, it is basically the filter size 11 into 11 into the width of the input channels. The width of the input channels is 3, 11 into 11 because my filter size is 11 into the width of the, sorry, the depth of the input channels is R, G, B, and how many search filters? 96. That means I just require how many weights? Only 34,000 weights. Where is 34,000? Where is 4,000 crores? Now you imagine how beautiful the CNN is. It is reducing the number of parameters. Instead of removing some of these weights, it is sharing the same 34,000 weights across multiple values of the channels. That is the beauty of CNN. Okay. Okay, let me erase this clumsy part. Fine. Another question, sir, you're writing this configuration. Should we remember this configuration for every architecture for the exams? Not required. Again, I'm telling guys, configuration, I'll give some other configuration in the exam and I'll ask you to calculate the width and height. I'll ask you to calculate the parameters. I'll ask you to draw the architecture, etc., etc., etc. Okay, no need to remember this. This is only for the demonstration purpose in your deep learning frameworks like PyTorch. I don't know, till now I did not tell you what are the deep learning frameworks that we have to implement this, without getting getting a lot of time with this understanding. You know it without understanding this entire architecture also, you can easily implement in the deep learning frameworks called PyTorch, Keras, and TensorFlow. These are, of course, there are others also, but these are the ones we will use in our labs. Sometimes I'll ask you to do an experiment review based on PyTorch. Sometimes I'll ask you to do in Keras. I'll ask you to do in TensorFlow. So what is the difference? No. PyTorch is an open source. TensorFlow is developed by Google. So that's only the function names will change, and here and there the syntaxes will change. But underlying level, you can use any framework. You'll be surprised, guys. You'll be really surprised. You can implement most of the deep learning codes using these architectures without delving into the lower level details that we are discussing. We are discussing this configuration. We are discussing a hell lot of things. Okay, without even knowing these low level details, the beauty of these deep learning frameworks is you can implement the architectures and start getting the predictions. Okay, then why we have to learn? See, if you have understanding, it would be easy for you to debug the errors. If you don't have understanding, just clicking on enter and execute, you cannot write a new code. That is the reason, if you have to be a good deep learning engineer, you should know the underlying details. Okay, let's come back to the next one. This is layer 1. Layer 1. Perfect. Now, should I stop at this? AlexNet has only one layer? Obviously, no. Let me also write the second layer. Again, the second layer is also convolution layer. Sorry, max pool. It's not convolution layer. This is convolution layer, con 1. This is max 1, max pooling layer. Again, let me write the configuration. For every layer, I have to write the configuration, right? The configuration for this is f is equal to 3, s is equal to 2. What else I have to write? Padding is 0. Padding is 0. Now, let us substitute here. I'm doing it intentionally, Nana. Later, I will not even tell you this configuration. It's not required because we are not getting anything out of this configuration. Some configuration is there. Even I can't remember that configuration. Okay. So, W naught is equal to Wi. Wi is 55 plus 2p. P is 0 minus f. F is 3 by S is 2 plus 1. So it gives me, what is the output that I get? It's 27, right? So 27 by 27. And how many search kernels, how many search filters I have to use? 96. Now again, the depth of it is 96. This is like this. It goes on till 96. Mostly, if you observe, in the max pooling layer, the input width and height is being reduced by half. It's not always mandated. You'll see some situations where this will not even happen. But generally, whenever you have a max pooling layer, in general, I'm not saying always, in general, the stride is 2. Okay, fine. So this is my max pooling layer 1. Should I stop at this point? Like this will have a number of layers. So the next layer is again a convolution layer. Convolution layer. Now again, if I want to do that convolution layer, again the same boring process, but I just want to tell you for at least, I think at least for this layer, and next layers I directly draw. I will not even tell you the configuration, because configuration, if I tell, you will feel bored with this configuration. Directly, next layer is K is, F is 5, S is 1, P is equal to 0, and K is, number of kernels is 256. Now, W naught is equal to Wi. What is my Wi? Wi is 27. So, 27 plus P minus F by S plus 1 is obviously 20. What is, did I write something wrong? Okay, fine, correct. So 23. So my output size is 23 by 23. But how many search frames or channels will be there for me? Around 256. So second, third one, like this, it goes on till 256. Okay, I did not draw it properly, but I don't think so. It's not a problem for you to understand. But anyhow, this is 256. Now, like this, it keeps on moving on, Nana. Okay. But for the sake of completeness, let me draw all that. I'll not even tell you these configurations. Directly, I'll draw. Okay. And if you want, you can refer the internet and get to know the configurations associated with each output. Okay. I just want to complete it. I think 23 by 23. After that, you have 256. Okay, fine. Again, to this, you will apply 3 by 3 filter. Again, you will apply 3 by 3 filter. Then with some configuration, I'm not telling that configuration. Again, I'm not telling multiple times. I'm reiterating the same thing, Nana. I'm not focusing on the configuration. Configuration is like there is no logic with that configuration. Only they got highest accuracy with that configuration. So that's the reason I'm not trying to tell that configuration. So 23 by 23 across 256, you got 3 by 3. When you apply 3 by 3 filter, again that 3 by 3 filters, I'm trying to apply max pooling now. Max pooling. So even when you're trying to do max pooling, you require filter. So what I do is I try to, I told no, generally it will be reduced on an average to half, and like this I try to get the maximum out of each operation. Sorry, like this it goes on till how many? Because depth is 256, I'll have 256 channels. This is my max pooling operation. Again, to this max pooling operation, I will apply 3 by 3 filters. How many search 3 by 3 filters? 256 search 3 by 3 filters. That means this is my one kernel. And how many search kernels I'll apply? 384 kernels. This is the configuration. Now, if you apply 384 kernels, then what happens? I'll have 384. Like this, it goes on. And finally, I'll have 384 frames. Again, I'll apply. It's a very boring, Nana, because there is no logic here, but I just want to complete the architecture. It's again, I'll apply 3 by 3 filters to this. And how many such 3 by 3 filters? 384. This is one kernel. How many such kernels I'm going to apply? 384 such kernels. 3 by 3 across all 384 channels. This is one filter. So this is one kernel. How many such kernels? I'm going to apply 384 kernels. That means the output width is again 384. The output width is again 384. It's very boring. I also know, but I should teach you, na. 384 because there is no logic. It's a more of mechanical job. So since it's a 3 by 3 filter, your output size also will. This is 384 11 by 11. No? 11 by 11. This would be 9 by 9, and this would be 7 by 7. Again, for this, I'm going to apply 3 by 3 filter. 3 by 3 filter. How many search 3 by 3 filters is? Because it's depth of this is 384. So if always you remember this is width, height, and depth. So how many search kernels I need to apply? I think here they applied 256. 256. That means output depth will be 256. Okay. So like this, finally, the last layer is max pooling. This is I think 5 by 5. When they apply max pooling, you'll get 2.5, but they've adjusted to 2. So this is 2 by 2, and the depth of this is 256. The depth of this also will be 256. 256. Now, should I stop at this point? No. Why? This is max pooling. This is convolution layer. This is also convolution layer. This is also convolution layer. Okay, this is max pooling layer. So how many max pooling layers you have? 1 and 2. So sir, what we have to remember in this architecture? Do remember one thing. You have to see the sequence. That means after convolution, max. Convolution, 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 max. I think somewhere I missed it. One more max. Yeah, here. So totally you'll have 3 max pooling layers, and remaining all are convolution layers. And like that you have to remember every standard architecture, and also try to remember the sequence. After convolution layer you're getting max pooling layer, or you're getting another convolution layer also, you have to remember. Fine. So this is my end of the architecture LXNet, but should I stop at this point? No, I should have fully connected layers. So I already told why should we have fully connected layers. You'll have two fully connected layers. You also have another fully connected layer, but this time let us take, either you can take 10 neurons or you can take 1000 neurons. It depends on the number of classes in your data set. So this time I assume that in my data set I have 1000 classes. Okay, so I have included the fully connected layer with 1000 neurons. Okay, so this is having 4096 neurons. This is 4096 neurons. So if you see the last layer, this is 2 by 2. Let me take one by another color. This 2 by 2 is connected here. That means how many connections, how many dense connections? 2 by 2 into 256, because the depth is 256 into 4096. This is the number of connections. These are the number of connections at this point. Again, we'll have number of connections between these two layers, 4096 into 4096. Again, the number of connections between these two is 4096 into 1000. So if you calculate the number of weights, you calculate the number of weights across the entire, like I did not calculate the number of parameters here now, you know, because you know how to calculate. So you will get around 27.5 million parameters. In the exam, we will give an architecture like this. The exam will give an architecture like this and ask you to calculate the total number of parameters. That's the reason I have to draw the entire architecture, and we will give these configurations. Only we'll give these configurations. We'll say that after convolution operation, you assume that there are 3 max pooling layers, and 3 max pooling layers have this configuration, and you have another convolution operation with another configuration. So like that, we tabulate all that details and give it to you, and you need to estimate this width and height and depth and estimate the parameters and totally give the final set of parameters. Okay, this is extremely important. You'll get a definite question. Okay, fine. So I'm done with the second architecture, LXNet also. Then the third architecture, ZFNet. The third architecture is ZFNet. Why again the name ZFNet? Because the persons who introduced this architecture, one is Zeller and the other one is Fergus. I don't want to tell these names, but only for the sake of reducing your curiosity, I'm just telling. Okay, that's the reason it is named as ZFNet. Perfectly fine. But before I delve into this ZFNet, sir, you're telling different architectures, sir. You told that standard architectures are required. Standard architectures are required because I cannot try all the combinations. I don't have that much time. I don't have that much capacity of resources. So that's the reason I'm using standard architecture for different tasks, so that I can do minimal changes or minimal updates in my weights. Already the weights are fixed. The beauty I'll tell you, Nana, if you use this architecture, assume that LXNet will come with the pre-trained weights. This is very important, Nana. You will realize the importance of these architectures. We'll come up with the pre-trained weights. Now, how many weights are there, Nana? 27.5 million weights are there, million parameters are there. Now, these parameters are updated. Updated in the sense, you know, if I want to have 27.5 million parameters, these weights you should initialize with what values? With random values. With random values. And you train this entire LXNet architecture. You imagine, guys, I should keep on updating these weights using back propagation. using stochastic gradient or vanilla gradient or momentum gradient, I should able to update these weights. Why? Because when I initialize the weights randomly, your loss will be extremely high, extremely high. Then I should reduce the loss. I need to back propagate. While back propagating, what I have to do? I have to update this weight. It's not one weight or two weights or three weights. 27.5 million weights. You should update in such a way that when you again forward propagate, your loss should decrease. Do you think that in one iteration from loss 10,000 to your loss will come 0.1? No, no, not at all. You will take n number of iterations. It may take to reduce the loss to 0.1 or 0.001. It may take days. It may take years also sometime. It may take even years, Nana. I'm not exaggerating. People have done that. It may take even years to update the weights and get stable weights. This is extremely important word. Stable weights. That means now you realize the importance that why you are not supposed to have your own network, only because it's not easy to retrain with your own set of weights. How much time it will take? Maybe small networks it's fine, but a network with these many millions of weights, you imagine how much time it will take to back propagate update, loss calculation update, back propagate loss calculation update. Oh my god, it will take a hell lot of time. That is the reason people started. Why can't I use at some point? Maybe people have come up with this architecture, and in the deep learning frameworks that I'm telling, these weights are stored, Nana. Because whenever they say the architecture is not only defined. So in deep learning framework, if I say use LXNet, LXNet only will not be used. Along with this LXNet, all 27.5 million stable weights, all 27.5 million stable weights are also applied to your new task. I will not start my weights randomly. Earlier in your CAT 1 exam, you started your weights randomly. Now, if you start with random initialization, it will take hell lot of time, hell number of iterations to reduce the loss. But if I start with stable weights, then maybe in one or two iterations or three iterations or four iterations or maybe very less number of iterations for the new task, I'll get loss very, 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 very minimal, because already these are stable weights. You started with the stable weights. You understood the importance of using standard architectures. That is the reason we are learning the architectures. We should be very, very careful why we are learning about these architectures. So single reason, if I use standard architecture, millions of each on that architecture was already stable. They were already stable. If I use stable weights for the architecture, for my or for that standard architecture, but for a new task, then what happens? I don't need to start from scratch. I'm already having a reasonable view of that architecture. So even though I apply to a different task, it will not take many epochs to reach the minimum loss point. So that is the beauty of standard architectures. You should know this. You should really know this. Okay. Now, next point I'll tell you, sir. Okay, you are telling that whenever we use standard architecture, the 1+1 offer is we will know how many convolution layers, how many max pooling layers, what is the configuration, everything. The other offer, 1+1 offer that you get is the weights, stable weights. How beautiful it will be if I start with reasonable weights instead of starting with some random weights. Okay, this is one thing. The second reason that you have to remember, sir, you're telling LayNet, sir, then you're telling LXNet, sir, then you are now telling ZFNet, sir, tomorrow you'll tell some other architecture, sir. But okay, sir, that's fine. You're telling stable weights, different configurations, all these things. But sir, when should I use which architecture, sir? Which is good? Which is good? Nana, this LayNet was introduced. If you want year, I'll tell you. But this LANet was introduced in 2000, much before that. I don't remember the exact year, maybe 2009. I'm not sure. Subject to correction. We just look into it. LXNet was introduced in 2012. This next architecture, ZFNet, was introduced in 2013. Okay, that's fine, sir. Why are you telling years? I'll tell you guys. This LANet on a particular data set, for example, take the case of human digit recognition, handwritten digit recognition. On this digit recognition, this particular LANet has given an error rate of 25.8, which is very high. In 2012, the error rate for LXNet is 16.4. See the beauty, Nana, how much error has been reduced. In ZFNet, the error rate is 11.7. That means now you realized which one to use. As the years are progressing, the error rate decreased. Later we learn an architecture developed by Google. Later we learn an architecture developed by Microsoft. That means as of now, this across this standard architectures, this Google architecture and the Microsoft architecture are very, very standard. You can use for your projects also. But what is the difference? These guys will give you the lowest error even for your task. In most of the cases, I don't say for 100% of cases, but for most of the cases. If for your task, for your project which is not giving least error, then you need to retrain from that stable weights. But that retraining will not take much time because you already started with stable weights or reasonable weights. Is it fine, Nana? Is it fine? Any questions on this? Let me stop recording and I'll take your questions.